Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Archives and History Library for the first of our 2016 block lecture series, and certainly we're very appreciative to Mr. Anthony Kinzer for all his work in setting this up. I do want to note, and he may help me here on one of these, June 30th we have Dr. Cubert Smith will be speaking here. On July 28th, Gary Mays, and I think August 18th is yet to be determined. Is that right, Mr. Kinzer? Okay, very good. I also want to note one other lecture that's coming up because it certainly has a connection to Charleston. It's a lecture on Tuesday, June the 7th by Brooks McCabe, and he's going to talk about the economic history of Charleston as seen through the eyes of four families, and one of those families is the James family. So looking forward to that presentation. Again, that's on a Tuesday, June the 7th. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Mr. Anthony Kinzer.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming out tonight. I want to personally thank the West Virginia Division Cultural Center and Archives and History and Mr. Joe Geiger and the staff for being so hospitable and putting our block speaker series together for this year. As you know, this is our third year, and we're very gracious of our guests who have been a part of our block speaker series over the years, and it's encouraged me quite a bit to bring here and talk to the people who have created the history that's being exhibited and how you have helped me learn more and more about the area that I'm living in, Charleston. I have, like I said, feel gracious and honored to put these activities together. And this one is very special to me as well. Mr. Joe Turner, he's been very gracious and hospitable to be here and be a part of our activities. I'd like for you to be conscious of our organization with our flyers, our brochures, and we'd like you to invest into our organization and our plans for the upcoming years. We still haven't finished our plans for the block. We have some plans on schedule that we're working toward funding for. Over the next 3 to 4 years, I anticipate those plans will come to fruition. We began in 2011 with the Historic District designation, and I think that we have more to do and more to accomplish with your help and with the help of the city of Charleston and the state of West Virginia. I want to introduce a gentleman that I've gotten to know quite well who will give his personal account and his personal knowledge of our guest, Joe Turner. And now I'd like for you to know and meet again, Mr. John Anderson.
Good evening. I'm not going to take a long way to introduce my friend and my good buddy as we grew up together in the neighborhood of Bradford Street, Jacob Street, Moore Street, Lewis Street, Hansford Street, up to Ruffin Avenue and around. We grew up playing ball together, just having a good time. He graduated out of Garnet High School and I didn't. So that's one thing I'm mad about. But anyway, I would like to introduce you all to a very good friend of mine, General Joseph Turner.
Good evening. I'm very, very happy to be here, and all my good friends are here, so I feel right at home. So I thought I'd be nervous, but I'm not. And just very happy to be in one piece and be here. But anyway, I would like to, I thought we were going to have some ROTC cadets in here. Evidently, they're not going to show up. But anyway, I would like to start off by saying that I was born here in Charleston, West Virginia. But my mother and father divorced when I was 3 months old, and I was sent to the area of Fayetteville, Garden area, came over that area, and I was raised up there by an aunt, an uncle, grandmother, and grandfather. So, well, I'll be there. And there's another good friend walking in, late as ever. I was going to say to the cadets that I would hope that they would continue to go on and go to school and continue with their ROTC program, maybe at West Virginia State, or one of the other fine universities here in West Virginia, because I wanted to toot that West Virginia State ROTC program. That's where I came from. I graduated from there, and as you well know, we've graduated 15 generals, of which I am one of them. We had one. In fact, the present adjutant general of the state of West Virginia is a graduate of West Virginia State, James Hoyer. And we're working on a program together right now, and I'm going to honor this next individual that I'm going to introduce you to. Of those 15 generals, we have one that's a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient. And if you know anything about the Congressional Medal of Honor, that's the highest award that you can win, not win, but earn in defense of this country during wartime. So I think we can show the CD now.
My guest today, all the way from Germany, Major General Charlie Rogers. Welcome. It's my honor to have you, sir. And one of about 240 persons that is alive yet with a Congressional Medal of Honor.
Yes, sir.
We're very proud of you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
You were born in
West Virginia.
And your father?
My father was a coal miner. But I guess the best way to describe my daddy is that my daddy was a Christian, a practicing Christian who loved our Lord so very, very much. And it was easy for me to love my daddy, and it was easy for me to love my Lord because I saw the expression of what love does. It was a beautiful thing. My mother also was a very, very fine Christian lady.
You and I have something in common. I was not quite 5 years old when I got my call to the ministry. And you were 4 years old when something happened.
Yes, sir. I was in church with my mother. And the preacher preached a sermon, the words of which I don't remember, the topic of which I don't even remember. But they sang a song afterwards. And the words of that song say essentially, and I learned all of the words later on as I got older, but I remembered a number of those words from that time. And the words say essentially, go and labor faithfully for Jesus. He will reward you for the sheep you gather. Go and tell them of salvation. Christian, will you go? Go and labor faithfully for Jesus, working, faithful, pleading to the lost of every nation. Christian, will you go? And I remember saying there, 4 years old, yes, I will. Yes, I will go. Yes, I will go. I felt a very strong sensation that the words were to me, will you go? And the last words say, hear them crying, the lost ones. Hear them crying, oh, you did not tell me. Go and tell them of salvation. Christian, will you go? And I remember consciously saying, yes, I will go. So as I was walking home with my mother from the church, I said, Mom, I'm going to be a preacher. She said, why do you say that? I said, I just promised the Lord I was going to be a preacher.
So you went through high school, and you studied French in high school. I found that interesting. And you went to college, and I was fascinated, since you had your career set on the preaching, that you took as your major in college chemistry and mathematics.
Yes, sir.
And German.
And German, right.
Not too bad. Not exactly the snap courses.
Yes, sir. Well, I took those courses really because I liked them, but secondly, and at the risk of being immodest, and God test immodesty, or being vain, I took them because they were hard. And a lot of people said they were very, very hard courses, and I said, what the heck, I think I can do it. Because my experience had been that the Lord would help me do anything. And I had done it at that time, and I went on and took them, and I enjoyed them very, very greatly. And I did reasonably well with them.
You graduated from college, got into the military service, and went to Germany.
And went to Germany.
And you met your wife.
Yes, sir.
And you've been married to her for
33 years.
And you have 3 daughters.
3 daughters, yes, sir.
Beautiful marriage.
Yes, sir. It's been a wonderful marriage.
Let me ask you, when you became a general, first brigadier and then major general, how many generals were there in the Army, and how many of those were blacks?
There were about 450 or so generals in the Army at that time, and as I remember, 4 or 5 were black at that time. But right now, we have close to 50 black generals in the military services, some of whom are female. We've got some female black generals. I know of at least one lady who
So you're a two-star general. You can't say this, but I can say that it's possible you could have gotten a third star if you hadn't decided to resign or retire.
Yes, sir.
For what reason?
To stay for the ministry. That was the most important thing. You started off saying that I'm a general and I'm Medal of Honor recipient. Fine. But the most important thing about me, Doctor, is I'm a Christian. I can't say I'm a good man. I'm not. But I'm a Christian, and I love the Lord, and the Lord loves me. And though I'm a stranger here in the Crystal Cathedral, the Lord knows me. And it seems He knows every one of those there by name, because they're His sons and daughters, as I'm one of His sons. Therefore, they're our brothers and sisters, and we know each other.
Oh, 3 years ago you retired, and you've been studying in Germany, theology, and now, not long ago, you were ordained. Is that right?
Yes, sir, in May of this year.
In the Southern Baptist Church.
Yes, sir.
What a great day. He insisted I call him Charlie. I can't bring myself to looking at a two-star general and say, Charlie, this doesn't seem right. But Charlie, he asked for it. Let's talk about how you got the Medal of Honor. It was a day in Vietnam, and you were a colonel, lieutenant colonel, and it started out about midnight, and you were throwing plenty of flares, so there was a little light from the flares.
Yes, sir.
And then you took your first hit.
Yes, sir.
You saw an explosion,
Well,
and a bullet entered. Yeah, it
I was
said
shot in the face, yes, sir.
shot in the face.
First wound that I had.
Okay, that was the first one of the day.
Yes, sir.
There would be 3 separate wounds.
Yes, sir.
The first one was a bullet that came in below your left eye,
Right, sir.
through the face, and you felt something in your mouth, and
And I was knocked to the ground, and I felt first I was choking when I became conscious. And I was choking. I was choking on blood that was running down my throat. So I rolled over and coughing, felt something in my mouth, and I reached in my mouth and I pulled it out. It was a bullet that had hit in my face and come down into my mouth. So I pulled it out and threw it away. I always wished I'd kept it. But that was the first time I was wounded.
this is about midnight.
Yes, sir. That's right,
You
midnight.
got back on your feet.
Yes, I got back to my feet.
You and how many others?
I went and picked up 3 additional soldiers to help me counterattack off to the west, because the enemy soldiers had broken through in very, very large numbers, and they were running all over our position with a view toward blowing up our artillery weapons and blowing up our operations center and all. And they were just flying all over every place.
Close.
Yes, sir, about a football field away over on the west flank. So I got 3 soldiers, and we went off to the west flank with a view toward reestablishing the security of that flank. And as we were moving in there, I remember seeing a bright red burst of fire, and then I saw my feet flying back over my head. I was knocked over backwards.
This was about 1 o'clock.
This was about 1 o'clock.
And you got a fresh hole in your head.
Yes, sir. And I got some fragments from a rocket-propelled grenade that went through both legs. Did not break any bones, but they went through the legs. I could not walk without assistance, so I had a rifle that I which I put under my arms to help me get around. And then one of my soldiers and I dragged back into the position a 3rd soldier who was wounded. A soldier who was killed, one of the soldiers was killed instantly. We went back and got him later on. So that was the 2nd time that I was wounded.
Okay, that was 1 o'clock. What did you do between 1 o'clock and 8 o'clock?
Well, we continued to fight and fire. I was an artilleryman, so we fired an awful lot of artillery fire toward the enemy, who was coming through our perimeter in large numbers because they had blown through the concertina and wire with munitions, and so they were coming in very, very fast and in large numbers. So we were firing our howitzers directly into them when I saw a projectile cannon, a rocket hit off about 70 meters to our east, and then I didn't pay too much attention because I'd seen plenty of those in my life. But then a few seconds later I saw another one that hit about 30 meters to the east, and I thought, oh my gosh, The next one's going to come right in. I was standing on a parapet where we were firing howitzers from the parapet. And the next thing I remember, I was sailing through the air. And I saw the howitzer, the 105 millimeter howitzer. I saw the trails of the howitzer moving. I saw a soldier fly through the air with me. And then as I was coming down, I cupped my hand and slammed against a bunker.
Because you remember parachute
I
training.
remember parachute training. If you have your head up and you land and your head hits the ground, you break your neck. So I tucked my head down and rolled like that. And I slammed up against a big sandbag bunker. And I remember seeing both of my legs up like this as I was lying on my shoulder. And the legs were blown open by the explosion. I tried to move my toes and legs and couldn't move anything, so I thought they were broken. I found out later they were not broken, that the nerves were blown apart. And subsequent operations after we had finally won the battle there, which we did. And
You won the battle,
yes, sir.
but you couldn't walk out.
No, sir, because we lost a tremendous number of soldiers, sir. I had 16 soldiers who were killed in that fight and 68 who were wounded. But of the enemy soldiers, there were about 300 that were killed in that fight. And I will say this, for those of us who are Christians, you wonder, how do you do things like that? I don't see any inconsistency between being a good soldier, I'm not saying I was a good soldier, being a soldier fighting for your country and doing that which you are told to do, and that which is consistent with your orders, that and being a Christian. It was a matter of our defending our position or a matter of surrendering the position, and all of the soldiers for whom I was responsible being killed, all the equipment for which I was responsible being destroyed. So we did what we had to do, and I think we did it very, very well. I mentioned to an earlier group that many people think that the reason we in the military exist is to fight wars, and that isn't so, sir. The reason we're in war in the military is to deter wars, to prevent wars by being strong and well-armed and well-equipped. And we do that pretty well.
You're the last guys that won a war, didn't
We're
you?
the last persons that won a war because we're the first ones who want to feel the impact of it. First to die, to bleed, and so forth. And of all the other people who expect to experience the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that Thomas Jefferson talked about, they can only experience it and live that in a free society.
We're almost out of time. But you were airlifted out. You were dropped with a huge part of your thigh blown away forever.
Yes, sir.
They took you to the hospital. Miraculously, they found the two ends of the severed sciatica nerve, found both pieces, pulled them together, stitched it, and gave you the hope of walking again.
Yes, sir.
And here you are, after 4 months in the hospital, enormous therapy. You jogged a few miles this morning. I know when I came, you were running around this property.
Yes, sir.
You're in great health. You have recovered. And now you're an ordained minister. And your dream for the rest of your life is what?
Is to bring the word of the Lord to his people. Those people out there that the song was addressed me when I was a young boy. Go and tell them of salvation. I want to go and do it. That's my life's work.
Hello, Rogers. Charlie, you are a wonderful, wonderful man. God bless you for that.
He said that at the end there that he was in very good health and to go out and preach to the Lord. Well, to make a long story short, 3 years later, Charlie Rogers was dead from prostate cancer. What a waste. But you're probably wondering why I showed you Charlie Rogers, why I grew up around Charlie Rogers. He influenced my life. Also, I want to right now thank Mr. Kinzer for inviting me again to be here to be a block series speaker and talk about the block area, and I will get to that, I promise you, Mr. Kinzer. My two role models were Charlie Rogers and Chuck Yeager. I really wanted to be like Charlie Rogers, but he was such a perfect individual. Really, really smart, intelligent, football, basketball, he did it all. And I knew that there was no way that I could follow in his footsteps, but he influenced my life quite a bit. As I told you before, my mother and father divorced when I was 3 months old, and I was sent up to Fayetteville. And I was to be raised by an aunt and an uncle, Bernard Ellis and Ardella Ellis, and a grandmother, Catherine Ellis, and grandfather, Carly Ellis. My father, Joseph Turner, joined the Army National Guard here in Charleston and spent 4 or 5 years in the Guard, and later volunteered for active duty and stayed on active duty for another 20 years. And he served about 12 or 13 years at West Virginia State College, believe it or not. I remained in the Kmart area, Garden Kmart area, until I was 10 years old. And my grandmother was a teacher, and she was a graduate of West Virginia State, took me to school with her when I was 4 years old. So I started school when I was 4 years old up in Kennard, West Virginia. And she taught grades 1 through 6. General Rogers grew up in that same area, and I knew him quite well. He was 10 years older than me, but he was all around in everything that anything you can think about, he could do it. Very, very smart, very, very intelligent. Football, basketball, he did it all. See how large he was? I thought he was a giant, but he's only 5'5". He's smaller than Johnny. Where'd Johnny go? But anyway, as I said, I was 10 years old. He was quite a very impressive young man. He was all around, very studious. He was very active in the church, as you can tell by the way he was talking. His whole life was around the Lord, no doubt about it. His mother and father were very active in the Mount Zion Baptist Church there where we attended. And Charlie did everything else at the church. He was the school teacher, the usher, Sunday school teacher, youth minister, janitor, and just a great ambassador for the church activities at Mount Zion Baptist Church. And as I said before, I knew I wanted to be like him because he was very, very impressive. However, I knew that I couldn't be, so I had to pick out another hero. That second hero was Charles Chuck Yeager. And I picked him out because I knew at that young age I wanted to be a pilot. I don't know why I knew that, but I had a kitty car, which you will see later on. It was made like an airplane, and I thought I was flying, even though I was 5, 4, 6 years old, okay? So I knew I kind of wanted to be like a pilot, or be like Chuck Yeager, because I had seen him in the movie theaters in the newsreels. He had just broken the sound barrier in 1947. First man to fly faster than the speed of sound. Well, I thought maybe I could do that, but, I never got to that speed, but I did fly some pretty fast airplanes. And anyway, I decided I would try to be like him, and my mother came to get me when I was 10 years old there in Fayetteville, and I didn't want to leave because I had gotten accustomed to the living there. I had a lot of friends there. My grandfather was a coal miner, but he was also a farmer, and he had a farm. He had horses, and cows, and hogs, and pigs, you name it. Also, there were peach orchards and grapes and anything you could think of. One nut I was trying to think of, a chinkapin. I couldn't think of that from safe brain. I looked it up. That was the best nut going, and I didn't know what it was. But anyway, we had everything on that farm. We had swimming holes where we could swim in the river, in the creek, wasn't river, in the creek, and where we watered the horses, the cows. And anyway, she came to get me, and she brought me back here to Charleston. I didn't want to leave all the great families there that I had gotten accustomed to, all my friends and everything. But I thought that was the worst day of my life. I really thought that. But as it turned out, it was the best thing to ever happen to me, because I would have been trapped up there in Fayetteville. The only jobs available were working in the coal mines, and I surely didn't work in the coal mines. Jackie worked in the coal mines. Jackie's Charlie Rogers. We knew him as Jackie Rogers. Worked in the coal mine one day, and he said, I can't do this. But he went on and finished down here at State. And when he got shot up in Vietnam, and that was Halloween night in 1968, I was there too. But he was on the ground, fighting on the ground. I was up in the air flying. I was a pilot by that time. But anyway, I said I did not want to leave my grandfather's farm and leave all those outstanding days up there. And it was best that she brought me back here to Charleston. And she worked at the State Road Commission. She drove a mail truck. And there's a couple of people here who probably knew my mother. I think you probably knew her. But And that was a job that females didn't do at that particular time, driving a mail truck. She drove for the State Road Commission. And she did that for some 10 to 20 years. And every summer, she would have a job for me here at the Capitol. I worked in this, not here, but the library when it was over there in the Capitol. Mr. Arthur Jackson was over there, the head librarian at that particular time. And that was a great job. I did that for 2 summers. I worked in the State Road Commission. I worked in the DMV every summer, and employment security. So this is home to me. Believe me, I've spent a lot of time in this Capitol. But anyway, she brought me back here, and I enrolled in the 6th grade at Board, and that's where I met Johnny. Johnny, I wanted to play basketball and everything. I wanted to be an athlete, is what I wanted to be. And I got out there on the court. I was always real small. I wasn't that small. but anyway, Johnny and I were on the same team playing with the Globetrotters, as I recall. And I never got to play anyway, but Johnny was smaller than me. I always use the excuse I was too small to play. But he was small, and he was all over the court playing. But Johnny's always been a role model to me, too. I want you to know that, Johnny. He's a couple of years, we're the same age, but because my aunt and grandmother started me in school so early, I was always 2 grades ahead of Johnny. I spent the next 3 years at Board, and then I finally got to dear old Garnet High School. And that's where a lot of you people in here, I met a lot of you there. I couldn't wait to get to Garnet, going through Board, and I got down there, and at that particular time, it was located in the block area, and Garnet's still there, by the way, but my mother was in the choir at the First Baptist Church. So I spent a lot of time there at church, especially on Sundays, Sunday school, church services, get-togethers after church, and during the rest of the week, I would go back to different things at the church. And I wanted to mention the block, the Ferguson Theater, which was where we all went. And I didn't know about the back door thing. I found that out from your talk. I didn't know about that. So I paid my 21 cents, 15 cents, 21 cents, whatever. In other words, what we're trying to say, if you had $1 in your pocket and you go to the theater, anytime, you're in for a treat. And on Saturdays, we went in and we stayed there all day. We had a double feature, Westerns, and with the serials each week, and the continuous serials, the cartoons, and the little Three Stooges, Captain Haddock-Call. Remember all that. So that's what we call riding the seats all day long on Saturdays. And then during the week, I would go there too. And living at Shelton Avenue, we could walk back, and I could walk there in 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Have a good time. And later on, my mother bought a home in Rand, so we moved to Rand, so I spent the next 3 or 4 years there in Rand. And I finally graduated from Garnet. I tried to play football, basketball, not football, but basketball there. I went off for every team. I never made any of them, so. But I tried. I pat myself on the back for that. But I have to bring this in. I know my wife's going to kill me, but in 11th grade, we had to sign up for the draft, military draft. So I walked down on Virginia Street, and there was about 10 of us signing up. And coming back, she was standing at the bus stop on Summer Street to catch the bus to go home. She was in attendance at Charleston Catholic High. She went to school there. So I got a telephone number, and I called her for about a year. And I graduated in 1956, the last class at Garnet, and I invited her to my graduation. And she came, and I had my daddy's car, and I drove her home that night. And I met her mother for the first time. And I met her mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, met the whole family. They were all Fergusons. Well, you got the name now, Ferguson Theater, Fergusons. Okay, this was his mother, sister, and niece. So anyway, I talked to her mother for the first time, and she said, "Oh, you graduated from from high school today." I said, "Yeah, I did." She said, "Did Norma tell you that she also graduated?" I said, "No. What do you mean?" She said, well, she graduated from school. She graduated from the 8th grade to the 9th grade. I said, she did what? But her mother didn't know that I was 2 grades ahead of myself. I think she was trying to tell me that her daughter was too young to date somebody that was finishing high school. So from there, I went on to, I graduated from Garnet, went to State, and I was commuting from Rand back and forth each and every day. And also, I hung out on the block quite a bit. In the pool rooms, I got my hair cut there in the different 2 barbershops. At Garnet, and eating lunch, I always ate down on the block. My favorite cafe was John's Cafe. He had the hot dogs and the onions and all that stuff, beans and put the cornbread. You guys remember all that, I'm sure. So, and I just hung around that block all the time. Then a little bit older, I started hanging out in the pool room. And I was pretty lucky. Learned how to gamble a little bit. I didn't use my own money, because money that I would earn racking pool balls, or they would play blackjack in the back there, and I loved to play cards. And I would go back and pick up the cards, and if somebody would win, they would throw you out some coins. So every time I got some money, I would run out to my car. I had a car by that time, and fill my car up with gas. Okay, then I go back in and I gamble. Once I got my pockets, I would leave and get out of there, and I had a pocket full of money to go and do what I wanted on dates. And I love sporting events. I would go to track meets. I just had a good time growing up in and around that block. So then I went on to State and got into the ROTC program down there. I started off in chemistry. That didn't last too long, and pre-engineering. But I ended up, believe it or not, in mathematics. And you heard that General Rogers majored in mathematics. And I get the compliment every once in a while that people say I look like General Rogers. but anyway, I finally, my wife and I got married in my 3rd year. And so I moved in with her family down at West Virginia State, and I didn't have to commute anymore. Went from her back door. They live right behind the science building down at West Virginia State. So I became a member of that community down there. I also knew everybody in Rand. I know everybody up and down this valley, from Fayetteville, Montgomery, you name it. And they know who I am, believe it or not, the ones that are still living, of course. But I went on through the ROTC program down at West Virginia State, and I asked to go into the Signal Corps. And by God, they selected me to go into the Signal Corps, and I thought that would be associated with communications. And so anyway, I went through that program, went to Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, spent about 4 months going through the program there. From there, my first duty station was at Fort Benning, Georgia, which is down in the deep South. You guys thought segregation was bad here. You just didn't know till you got to your hometown down in Atlanta, Columbus, Georgia. And after spending so much time there, I was a signal platoon leader in an infantry outfit. And I flew with my company commander, who was an aviator on ground duty. And he would go up and fly his helicopters or fixed-wing aircraft, and I would go with him. And he let me hold the controls. And I said, I can do this. And at that time, we made about $222.30 a month, which doesn't sound very much. But at that time, it was a lot of money. We could live off of it. If I go to flight school, I'm going to get another $110 a month, okay? So I took all the tests, passed them, and got selected to go to flight training at Fort Rucker, Alabama, which is in the deep, deep South, real in the deep South. And but anyway, I was determined once I got in that school, they were not going to flunk me out. And I have to tell this story. We had 6 black guys in the class out of 120, which is unheard of. And so one of the guys that was an instructor from the Tuskegee Airmen, he was left over as a civilian instructor. He was now instructing at Fort Rucker. He got us together and said, listen, you're in the deep South here. He said, 6 black guys in one class, said, 2 of you might graduate. I don't expect any of you graduate. So what he was doing, I think he was trying to build us up so that we could make it through the program. Well, I made up my mind, if 2 will graduate, I'm going to be one of them. So anyway, to make a long story short, my instructor was a little short guy by the name of Campbell from Louisiana. That's still in the Deep South, okay? So he had three guys that he was trying to teach to fly. And 2 white guys and myself. So every time we would take off, he said, okay, Lieutenant, I have the airplane. I said, yes, sir. He let me fly up in the air. Anytime we get near the ground, he said, okay, Lieutenant, I have the airplane. And you have to realize he's in the back seat. I'm up front. He has controls back there, and I got controls up here. He said, all right, I have the controls, but what I want you to do is follow me through on the controls. Just see what I'm doing. I said, yes, sir. So he did that for about, you have to solo in 12 hours now. If you don't solo, you're going to get put out of the program. So I'm up to 6 hours, and all the other guys, we would get together, the black guys, we'd get together at night, we had a straight chair like that, and we'd talk about flying the airplane. And they were telling me what all they were doing. Oh, I landed today. I took off and I landed. I said, you did what? He said, well, I landed. I said, okay. So I said, and you can always get another instructor, if you think that you're not jabbing with this instructor. So I was ready to get another instructor. I think I had 8 hours. And I couldn't do anything right this day. And it got to the point where I thought he was going to call me a name. But anyway, he said, you take this airplane and put it back on the ground and let me out. I said, yes, sir. And I made up my mind then, I'm going to get a new instructor. Got on the ground, I reached up to turn off the magneto. He said, what are you doing? I said, you told me to put the airplane back on the ground. And the same thing, he landed, not me. He said, don't worry about it. You take the airplane, you go fly. I said, well, I haven't landed yet. He said, you've been landing all the time, you shouldn't know it. So I said, well, get on out of here then. So anyway, I make a long story short, I soloed that day, didn't have a problem. And needless to say, I didn't have to fly the next couple of 2 or 3 days. So all the other guys were still trying to solo. So I was instructor now at home in the chair. But anyway, I went through that program, and I went back from there. I went through instrument training, and I was selected to go into a multi-engine program right away, unheard of for a second lieutenant. And what was happening, they were building up the 11th Air Assault Division. It was a division that was going to deliver everything into war by air. And the air concept, where the old way, go by tanks and things like that. But we tested for 2 years. I went through multi-engine training in the Caribou, the largest thing the Army had, grossed out at 28,500 pounds. Flew that and got really good at it at Fort Benning, because we tested for 2 years and flying stuff that we thought we would do in Vietnam, and we did. So I flew that, had a lot of time in it, and we deployed to Vietnam in 1965, 1st Air Cavalry Division. Everybody else went by boat. We flew that airplane, the Caribou, from Fort Benning to the West Coast to Honolulu, Honolulu to Midway, Wake, Guam, Clark, on into Vung Tau, Vietnam. It took us 30-some days to get there, because we had to fly at slow cruise, which means that we had to power back so we wouldn't burn up so much fuel. And we have extra fuel bladders and oil bladders inside the tanks, inside the cabin of the airplane, where we could pump fuel and oil into the wing tanks and continue to stay in the air. And how dumb that was, but we did it. And I didn't think I could die at that particular time. I'm 22 years old, 23 years old. And I thought, I didn't even think about dying. And we had practiced doing this up and down the East Coast, just stay in the air as long as you could. But anyway, we made it all the way to Vietnam. One engine lost, between San Francisco and Honolulu, a guy lost. We had no problems. And we stayed there for about 5 or 6 days. We had good weather all the time. We had to wait on the weather. We were flying basically VFR. And we were from there to Midway Island, and a guy lost an engine. And the procedure was if you lose an engine because of our weight on the airplane, you have to go down as low as you can. You get to about 4,000 feet. If you can't maintain your altitude, you kick everything you can out of the back end of the airplane. He didn't do that. He went on down to 1,000 feet, and I think he got some kind of buffer from the ocean, and he was able to fly for about 6 hours on one engine. We got into Midway Island, and they changed the engine that night, and we took off the next day. And didn't have any problems. We stayed everywhere. Midway, Wake, Guam. We stayed in the Philippines for about 3 or 4 days. Then went on into Vietnam and got the airplanes ready. But if you saw the movie, We Were Soldiers, that was my unit. 1st Air Cavalry Division. Mel Gibson played in the movie. And we were flying in support of that division. So I didn't mean to get off on a tangent and talk about flying and all that, but I wanted to tell you that. So I did that for a year, and flying over there in support of the 1st Air Cavalry Division. Came back home, went to the advanced course at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, for about 10 months of training, communications, and came from there. They signed me to the 3rd Army headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. And if 3rd Army doesn't ring a bell, if you heard anything about General Patton, that was Patton's old army in World War II. And the Army was back here now, so I was assigned to that headquarters. And I had a little input. The guy asked me, he gave me a choice of going to different military bases. And I know they were trying to get me helicopter qualified, and I didn't want to be helicopter qualified. So he mentioned Fort McPherson. I knew they didn't have any helicopters. I said, I want to go to Fort McPherson. So he sent me down there, and I had to go to another twin-engine training aircraft, U-8. And my job was to fly generals around, VIPs, civilians, wherever they wanted to go in the 3rd Army area. If we had to go out of the 3rd Army area, we did that too. So I did that for 6 months, and I got a call and said, you're going back to Vietnam. And I talked them into letting me go to the aviation safety course at the University of Southern California. And I didn't go to rotary wing school because I didn't want to go to flight helicopters. But I went to that on the West Coast. My wife was going to stay on the West Coast with the kids anyway, so that fitted right in. And I went through that training. That's where the training was for all the services, Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, whatever. So when I reported back to Vietnam, I was not helicopter rated, and they had to assign me to another twin-engine aircraft. And I did the same job flying generals, VIPs around Vietnam. And I did that for 6 months, and then I got assigned as a company commander, headquarters company commander. And if you know anything about the military, you always want to be in command of troops if you want to go up the ladder to get promoted. So I volunteered to be a commander of a bird dog unit, and you'll see pictures of the bird dog here in a minute. But my commander would not let me do that because he was saving that position for the combat armed guys, the guys in armor, artillery, West Pointers. They're the ones that's going to move up really quick. Well, they weren't any better than me, I thought. So anyway, he made me the headquarters company commander. And at the time, I was kind of upset about it, but it's still command in combat, which is what you want. You want that on your record. So, hey, Bob. So anyway, I didn't know you were here. So anyway, I come back home this time, and I go to Fort Monmouth again, and I'm assigned to the Combat Developments Command up there, and I was a project officer in communications, and I also was an adjutant. And I started thinking about it, and I said, I don't think I want to go back to Vietnam. So I applied because of all the other guys that I had flown with. They knew they wanted to fly for the airlines. I hadn't even thought about that. I said, well, let me try. So I applied. I got hired, and when I got hired, I resigned my regular Army commission from the active Army, and went to school for Delta Airlines down in Atlanta, Georgia in 1970, and went through their program, and that's the hardest I ever studied, believe it or not, because they had a lot of different systems on those commercial airliners that we didn't have in the Army aircraft. But I got through the program, and I flew as a the Combat 880, DCH, L-1011s, and I wanted to continue my Army Reserve, continue in the Army. So I volunteered to go into the Army Reserves, and I was selected to go by the 81st ARCOM there in Atlanta. And once I got in the reserves, because I had all that active duty experience, command experience, I was able to go to different types of jobs real quick. I had been in the, I lost all my data rank as a major when I resigned, but I gained it back because in less than a year I got promoted to lieutenant colonel. And then I volunteered to be a commander of a 335th Signal Group, and I got that. I was a lieutenant colonel, and because the job was a colonel, I got promoted. I was a 37-year-old colonel. So I was moving up real fast, way faster than the guys in the reserves, and they were kind of upset with me because I was jumping over in front of them. But that's the way it is, you know. So anyway, I commanded that unit for 4 years, and I gave it up, and I had to move around to different jobs, desk rim, which I took care of all the money for the 81st ARCOM, desk log, maintenance and repair, and I purchased equipment for the Army Reserve Command. And then I was commandant again of a U.S. Army Reserve Forces school. And while I was doing all those jobs, the war broke out in Iraq, and they formed Central Command. And you hear on the TV right now, Central Command. They're in charge of that part of the world, the Middle East. A Central Command headquarters is commanded by active duty 4-star general. And he had, in charge of that, he's called a SINC. If war breaks out over there, he's in charge of all the war plans and everything like that. And we support him by giving him what he needs. Troops, munitions, weapons, radios, whatever he wants, he's man in charge. So when they formed their Central Command, they had to have certain units under Central Command. They had to have an Air Force, an Army, a Navy, and a Marine unit to serve under him. Well, 3rd Army came back into they was in mothballs, but they came back into the program. They activated them again, and they were the ground fighting force for Central Command. And when they formed 3rd Army, they had to have subordinate units under that unit, and my unit, the old 335th Signal Company group that I command, they upgraded that to a 2-star and 1-star command, and I was able to get back in that as a 1-star as the deputy commander. And I served in that position for 4 years. And when my commander retired, I moved up to be the commander of the unit, became a 2-star. And I did that I served in that unit for some 12 years, either as a group or as a brigade or a command. And after I finished retiring there, I didn't retire, after commanding there, they moved me to the Pentagon. I was the vice director for Desk C4 in the Pentagon for about 5 years. And I finally retired from the Army in 1998, March, and served 37 and a half years in the military. And I retired from Delta Airlines in 1999, a year later, and spent 29 years with them. So basically, that's what my life was all about. And I was influenced by Rogers and Chuck Yeager. And in reading Chuck Yeager's book, I didn't know that he had the Congressional Medal of Honor also. And I didn't know there was such a thing as Congressional Medal of Honor for peacetime. Well, he got it for peacetime. And it was a special, you can do it like special. Charles Lindbergh had it. Billy Mitchell had it. And Chuck Yeager had it too. So these two guys were the ones that influenced my life and who I wanted to be like. So can we show the PowerPoint now? That's a picture of Rogers when he in uniform while he was on active duty. It's a 1-star. Picture of me when just like I look now. And Yeager. He was something else. I know you guys here know all about Chuck Yeager. I don't have to tell you anything about Chuck Yeager, do I? I mean, when I was in junior high school at board, we knew he was coming. He would fly here and fly up under the bridge. And everybody's shaking their head. He did it 2 or 3 times, and he never got in trouble. If he got in trouble, he didn't care. Some kind of way he was blessed, you know. But he was something else. Now I told you that Charlie Rogers died 3 years after he retired. And that's his wife and his 3 daughters there on the front row at Arlington National Cemetery. He's being buried. You see Colin Powell in the background there. He was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at that particular time. There's his headstone. I've been to the gravesite to visit him. This is the Charles C. Rogers Bridge up at Cotton Hill, near Fayetteville. And that's where we would go to catch the train to go where, when I went in the military, I caught the train at Cotton Hill going to Fort Mama. That's General Rogers' oldest daughter. That's Jackie Rogers. And when they dedicated that bridge, I took her up and took her to the bridge site and took her to the old home place, and took her around and showed her everything where we grew up. Now that's the aunt, that's me as a young child. And that's my aunt that raised me until I was 10 years old. And her name is Ardella Ellis. And I didn't know that she had an education. I left there in 1947. 2 years later, she came here with her husband, and she was a nurse. And she was hired by St. Francis, and she became the head surgical nurse at St. Francis Hospital. I never knew she was even a nurse qualified. All she did was take care of us. That's my mother, and the one that worked here in the State Road Commission, drove the truck. And that's me as a young boy. That's at my grandfather's farm. And she gave me a new coat and a hat, and I was all dressed up, you know. Now this is my father on the left side, and his brother on the right, and that's their father, William Turner, at the top. So my father, like I say, he was in the military. I didn't see him that often as I was growing up, but I had other family members. I saw him once or twice. He would ride up on his motorcycle. He was a motorcycle rider. You remember? And that's what I was talking about. That's the airplane that I had when I was a young child. And I was, you know, I knew I could fly then. So when I got into that airplane down at Fort Rucker, I mean, it felt just like it. I felt at home, at ease. Really did. And that's me I thought you took that one out. That's me in my knickers on. I didn't like the knickers at all. My mother made me wear those things with the tight legs, the long socks and everything. That's my senior picture at Garnet High School, senior class. Sharp guy, right? And that lady there is my wife sitting over there. Got married at such young ages. I think I was about 20, something like that. I don't know how old she was. They said it wouldn't last, but we've been married 57 years. Wow. And that's my mother I've been talking about. She taught me and trained me in every way. We worked at the Capitol together, and then after duty hours, she would go out and clean homes. And she would take me with her. And she showed me how to clean a house, and if I didn't do it right, she'd make me do it over and over again until I got it right. So I learned how to do it, and that's how I used that process in going through all the different schools and stuff that I had to go to, you know, do it right the first time. And that's when she was in the choir at First Baptist Church, and where is she? Oh, in the front row. I knew she'd be there. She made me what I am, just being truthful about it. This is Garnet Cap Ferguson. He's the one that owned the Ferguson Theater, where Barbara slipped in the back door. I didn't know about it. She kept that a secret from me. But I married my wife because she was a niece of this guy, and I thought I could get in free. I don't know if it ever happened or not, but I think it did. That's the hotel. And the hotel was surrounded by all these barbershops and M&S drugstore, pool rooms, like I mentioned. Brings back a lot of memories, I know. Now, this is the 5 generations. This is the lady holding my son there is Mrs. Sarah Ferguson. She's the mother of Cap Ferguson and 2 or 3 other brothers, Dan. And that's Dan's and Cap's sister, Margaret, who is my wife's grandmother. And that's her mother at the top, Imogene Sims. Of course, that's my wife at the back, so 5 generations. And that's when I was going through West Virginia State. And I don't know if you can pick me out or not. I was in my junior class. I'm the third, as you look at it, third from the right there, the front row. I was a company commander there, commanding on the campus. And that's when I graduated at State. My father had transferred from Fort Knox, Kentucky to West Virginia State. And he was there, and he touched a lot of us down there at State. And everybody gives me credit for being successful in the Army because of my father. It wasn't because of my father, it was because of my mother. She's the one that drove everything into me, no doubt about it. So it gave me, I built up a lot of self-esteem, self-confidence here at the Capitol and all the homes we worked in. And I could talk, get along with anybody. If I didn't want to talk to somebody that I didn't like, I knew how to get away from them, or I could control them too. So anyway, that's my first class at Fort Monmouth, New Jersey, when I went into communications. And I'm the one in the middle, I guess you can put me. A lot of people from different schools all over the country, Northeastern, great schools, electrical schools. I didn't have an electrical background, but I was able to get through the course. That was my first duty station at Fort Benning. My wife and we had 2 boys at that particular time, and just sitting on our new car. And now that's the bird dog. That's the one I was telling you about that I was in the front seat and the instructor was in the back seat. So that's what I learned how to fly in, that particular airplane. This is the U-6. I learned how to fly instruments in that particular aircraft. This was when I was a company commander in Vietnam in 1967. And you see my name at the top, Major at that particular time, but commanding in combat. And this is a picture of my mother with our 3 boys. And I think I was getting ready to go to Vietnam at that time in 1965. Yeah. This is a picture of the family. My aunt, the nurse here on the left, my wife, myself, my mother, our 3 boys. And the young lady there, it's our boyfriend. Young lady on the right is my aunt's daughter. So she's kind of like a sister to me now. And that was my Aunt May. And they have a big meal. I think it was Thanksgiving. I was on my way getting ready to go to Vietnam. And also I guess I was already in Vietnam when they went to the Grand Canyon. And that's when I was a colonel, when I got promoted real fast to colonel down in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Reserve Command. That's the airplane, one of the airplanes that I flew. That's the technician that took care of the airplane. U-3 Alphas, old Air Force aircraft. And of course, that's me posing. I flew that as a commander down there. And this picture here is here in Charleston, and I was being inducted into the Garnet High School Hall of Fame. And I was in the 3rd class there at Garnet. I got that here somewhere, information. Yeah, this is the picture of the Garnet High School's 3rd induction to the Garnet High School Hall of Fame, 1997 at the Charleston House. My class, we had 89 students when I graduated from Garnet, and I was in the college preparatory curriculum, and I was very honored to be one of the inductees of the 24 that night. I felt really good about it because a lot of the inductees that night were former instructors, and they're the ones that got me prepared to go out into the world and do what I needed to do. And my one teacher that I really enjoyed, 2 teachers really, Mrs. Ruth Norman, you've heard about her. I think we all enjoyed her. And my other teacher was Mrs. Norma Christian, who was a math teacher there at Garnet. So basically, that's my life, and I've enjoyed it. I've been blessed, just being truthful about it. Oh, there's another one there? Oh, okay. That's when I was being promoted to general.
That's important.
Yeah, they pass the general's flag to the, when you're a general, you have your flag and you put it in your office. If it's not outside the office, then they know you're not there. But if you're in your office, they put it there so, to know that you're in the office. And this is my father. He came to visit, well, that's when it's a promotion party that night. What it was. He was talking to a young lady there. This was when I was promoted to 2-star general. There's a 3-star there pinning the stars on me. My wife lived there too. She helped. And this is when Colin Powell came to visit down in Atlanta. I was a commander. And he would come down as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and he would preside over a change of command ceremonies. You know, I was able to talk to him. Looks like we were good buddies, but I didn't know him that well. But this is when I was working for Delta. They used me in a lot of advertisements, and this was when I first started, 1971, 72, somewhere along there. They had me there with a Boeing 747 crew. It was just for the picture. I was not qualified to fly the Boeing 747. Okay? And it was a program for the Atlanta Braves. And if you go to the game, you get a program. We're on the back of the program. And this is the airplane that I was most proud of flying, the L-1011. It's a jumbo jet. 275 to 300 people could ride on this airplane, depending on the seating configuration. And this is when I retired in the Pentagon. I had my wife and my daughter-in-law, and I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 grandkids. I have 11 girls, and 11 boys and one girl. And that's at the Charleston house giving my speech. And this is, I see Sandy Evans up there. This is one of the reunions that we had either at the Marriott or the Embassy Suites. That's it.
Anyone have any questions for this?
Oh, questions. I think I try to, when I talk, I try to answer, I anticipate your questions. And I try to answer them. So, but if you have any, I'll try my best to. I knew she would ask. Family member, go ahead.
I just had a question about why you didn't want to fly helicopters.
Do you watch the news?
I do.
Even today, they get shot down real quick. Yeah, I didn't want to be bothered with that. And plus, they have a lot of mechanicals. I didn't trust my wings going around either. But I did go back, and I did become helicopter qualified. And I had to, because in the last unit I was in, I was the aviation officer. And I built that program. And we had fixed wing and helicopters. So as the aviation officer, lieutenant colonel, I had to be qualified. So I went back to school. And I have a few hours in helicopter. I stayed away from those things.
Did you say a few words about Arthur Jackson?
Who is this?
Did you say a few words about
he was a nice guy to work with. We went to church together at First Baptist, and that's how I got the job, as I recall. Maybe somebody else knows him better than I do, but he left me alone. That's all. In the library, you can hide. This was a small library here. The one we had over there was huge.
Were you involved with the flight school in West Virginia State College University now?
The flight school? No, I'm not that old. But that program goes back, it was the Tuskegee Airmen. Even before the Tuskegee Airmen, they had a program down there. It was Mr. Grider, the instructor there, was the instructor. And that's how the Tuskegee Airmen, 4 of the first Tuskegee Airmen were from West Virginia State. Roberts and Mac something, Mac Ross. But they had trained in that particular program that you're asking about. And that's how they breezed through the Tuskegee Airmen thing so easily. But I was not involved in that, no. Before my time. I'm old, but I'm not that old. Yes, sir.
You're in the unique position of having been and watched, this area of Charleston, Kanawha County evolve. And, and you've been back numerous times, so you know the challenges we're going through. So any words of wisdom, although we know a lot of young people here, that you would give to young men and women who are trying to, as we try to get through the challenges that we face here in Charleston as far as educationally. I mean, right now, before on the west side, there's another meeting going on at Mercy Snow, and the many challenges they're having there. What words of wisdom could you give us here? Charleston and state, we have challenges financially and
and I think, I don't know if I can answer your question that well, but I think it starts at home. Just what your parents put into you. And I realize that a lot of people don't have parents and they're out there on their own, so they don't have that proper training and everything. But guidance, I should say. But mine started in and around my home with my mother. And like I say, she wasn't married. She was the one that raised me, and she's everything I am came from her. I hate to say it that way, but it starts at home, I think. Money and all that, we didn't have that much money, but we knew how to survive. And as far as segregation and stuff like that, didn't bother me. Except when I wanted to go down to the Diamond, you probably don't remember the Diamond, to eat, you couldn't do that, so we had to go to the block. But it still didn't bother me, so it didn't at all. And because I was happy-go-lucky, except I couldn't play ball. I wanted to play ball. And I never could play. I tried. I pat myself on the back for trying. In fact, I got my
Tried baseball too, didn't you?
I tried everything. I got you see that? That's the eye. That's the supers in there. And the supers, it goes around the school, and I got one thing in here that I got it outlined there. It says, "Oh, don't leave out Joe Turner. He played basketball for a whole week." Everybody knew, I guess I was a joke. I don't know. But I tried. Yes, sir.
Have you written a book or plan to?
I hadn't planned to. No, I haven't. You want to write it for me? I mean, I know it's a lot there, and it can be written. I don't have an interest in doing that kind of thing. A lot of people like to write a book, and I think it helps them feel good about themselves. I feel good right now.
Amen.
I feel really good. So, and it's because of my mother and these two guys that I wanted to be like. I wanted to be like them. I really did. And if I see Chuck Yeager today, you know what he had to call me? Sir. But I wouldn't do that. Either 1-star or 2-star. Yes, sir. Any other questions? I did real well then. Wait a minute. She's coming again. Now, this is the other one.
Did you ever meet General Yeager? I might have missed it. Have you?
I did not.
You didn't?
I did not. I have his book, and I'm going to read what it says. To Joe, good luck, General Chuck Yeager. I don't know how I got this book. I really don't. I think one of my people in one of my units got it for me and had it signed. But I never did meet him. I wish I could. And he's still living, because I think he's got a big battle going on in his family at this particular time. Yes, sir. The Fergusons, go ahead.
I have one more about how do you think that all of the accomplishments of the era in which you and your military peers, you kind of were so active. How do you think those kind of things can be remembered?
Be remembered?
And memorialized, yeah. Do you think that there's
Well,
ways?
It's just, well, since you brought that up, I'm working on a project at West Virginia State right now. And because I knew General Rogers, I discussed it with the other Hall of Famers at Western ROTC. and they made me the project manager. And what we're doing, we're going to put a bus at West Virginia State of General Rogers. We're going to unveil it September the 30th, and we're going to have plaques on the wall of all the 15 generals. So that's one way of remembering it at West Virginia State. Plus, the people that go down there will see that, and they'll want to, you know, they'll be having interest in it. And they might want to bring their kids, nephews, nieces, or whatever there to the state. And hopefully that we can help revitalize that ROTC program down there. Because when I went there, we graduated every year, 22 to 30 people to go on active duty. These days, if you graduate 1 or 2, you know, 3 maybe a year, you're doing something good. So they think. But I don't know. We just had an interest in the military, and we had a good staff at West Virginia State. Not bragging on my father, but he was pretty good about training people, and he didn't have to train me. He trained me, but he didn't have to do much of a job with me because my mother had me. She had me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I had just a quick question about individuals that are considering entering the armed services now. What kind of advice would you give them, or what kind of perspective would you offer them as they're making those determinations?
Well, I have mixed emotions about the military now. It's a lot of people getting killed in Iraq, Pakistan, Syria, and all that stuff is going on now. I really have mixed emotions about it. But when a war is not going on, the military is just great. I mean, it really, really is. I enjoyed every moment of it until I got to Vietnam. And then I saw stuff I had never seen before. People, young kids being shot through the eye, through the ears and stuff like that. And we got to, and I had to handle it. I was afraid of dead people until I got to Vietnam. My first mission in Vietnam, we'd been there for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. Got the airplanes ready to go. We were at a place called Pleiku. I had to go to An Khê, 30 miles away, 20 minutes away. And I was standing there waiting on my, whatever I had to do, haul people or whatever. And I waited for about 2 hours. And finally I saw this man come in, and he had on an apron, rubber apron. It had a mask and stuff on. He had something in his hand, a bag. It was a body bag of a helicopter pilot that had been shot down. Now you know why I don't want to fly helicopters, okay? And they couldn't get to his body. And his body was out there in the hot sun for, I know it's bad. You asked the question, so I'm answering it. So, and I had to fly that body from Central Highlands to Saigon, some 2.5, 3 hours away. And the odor was just terrific. And this was my first mission in Vietnam. And I had another 364 days to stay there. Luckily, I didn't have to do that again. So I have mixed emotions about telling people to go into the military right now. It's been good for me, but I don't know whether it'd be good for everybody right now. Yes?
Did you have any close calls with death while you were in Vietnam?
Well, one. And as far as flying, I didn't. But we were stationed at a place called Long Thanh North in 1968. And VC were all around us. And we had like a fort. And we had a berm that if we ever got attacked, we had to go up and protect that area of the berm. I had a certain area that I had to protect with my soldiers. So we got attacked, and I'm up there being a leader and all that good stuff. And the VC were out there. You couldn't see them, you know. And I know I came close to death because I heard the bullet go by my ear. I'm serious. So I was being shot at, but I shouldn't have been up there in the first place with my helmet and all that stuff. I'm thinking I was protected. But I remember that today. I think that was pretty close. So Norma, you got lucky. She wants me to shut up. So.
You know, I was in the military from 62 to 66 in Roswell, New Mexico, and we had a lot of racial problems during that era? Just wondering if you know in those type of situations.
Yeah, it's funny you should ask that because, yes, I told you my first duty station, Fort Benning, Georgia. And we were there, and we could do anything we wanted to on the post, but you couldn't go off post. I mean, you could go off post, but you're going to run into a lot of problems. And so they had guys that were white guys in the command with me that had parties at their homes off post. And they would come and apologize to Norman and I that, sorry, we can't invite you to our home because we live down in Georgia, Columbus, and people down there are crazy or whatever. It might have been them too, you know what I mean? Because a lot of the people there, they were from the Deep South also. But that's the worst thing. In Alabama, I was so busy studying, and we were isolated out in the middle of nowhere. I didn't run into any problems down there. And that's the worst place, Alabama, just being truthful about it. And we were there during the Martin Luther King's era. You know, I was always stationed down there. And George Wallace and all those guys. Well, I see Lucy Jean over here. She's from there down there. So, anything else? I've enjoyed it. I really have. And I'm glad to have it over. But
well, Brother Joe, this is a certificate from the Governor Earl Ray Tomlin, to Joseph Turner. Whereas Joseph E. Turner is a native of Charleston, West Virginia, and whereas Joseph E. Turner attended board elementary and junior high schools, graduated in 1956 from Garnet High School, and whereas Joseph E. Turner received a Bachelor of Science in Mathematics from West Virginia State College, and whereas Joseph E. Turner began his military career in 1961 as a second lieutenant in the Signal Corps to the Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC, where he had many command and staff positions before becoming the 35th Theater Signal Commander. And whereas Joseph E. Turner served 2 combat duties in Vietnam and received many awards and decorations for his outstanding service, which include the Legion of Merit, Bronze Star Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, the Army Achievement Medal, and the Air Force Medal. And whereas Joseph E. Turner is devoted husband to the wife, Norma, a loving father of 3 sons, and a proud grandfather of 8 grandchildren. Whereas Joseph E. Turner is highly respected among his peers and has shown a great true dedication and commitment to his family, friends, community, and country that has set an outstanding example to us all. Now, therefore, I, Earl Ray Tomlin, Governor of the great state of West Virginia, do hereby bestow upon Major General Joseph E. Turner this certificate of recognition.
This has been an extremely wonderful occasion. Like you, I'm very pleased at the outcome. Like you, I'm very pleased at the history that's being talked about, not only this year, but the last 2 years. For me, since 1956, it's been a history-making event. And personally, I want to continue doing these activities here and on the block. More specifically, in the coming future, you'll hear an original song written by Marshall Petty about the block's history. Lyrics, music, and they'll take you back to those days of the block. Imagine us having our own song about the block, as we have our own history of the block. Last week, that history was displayed in the renaming of a street, John Norman Street, which goes with Leon Sullivan Way and Christopher Martin. 3 incredible men and families that came out of Garnet High School. 3 incredible men and families who came out of Charleston, West Virginia, with international attention. We have a great array of people that we can give recognition to. Help me do this. Pass this history down for as long as it can be passed down, and have them to experience what we are experiencing now in 2050, in 2065. Let them know what the block is. Let them know what black folk in Charleston did then. Don't let it be forgotten, because I'm not. Again, I want to thank you all for being here, being a part of our block history, being a part of our block speaker series. I want to thank Mr. Joe Turner again, personally again, for being a part of this. His wife Norma, his family, and I eventually want to meet his grandkids as they grow up and come to Charleston and learn more about what we experience. Come out next month with Dr. Cuba Smith, and the following month with Garrett Mays. I sincerely appreciate your attendance and your appreciation to what we're doing here in the Cultural Center Archives of History. And if you have family collections of history and want to share it with anyone, consider making a donation to the archives for those collective memories that it can be shared around the world on their website. Again, thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you all again as we do more things around the Charleston area with our organization, the West Virginia Center for African American Art and Culture. And before I forget, and I don't want to do that, thank my members of my committees, board members of the organization, people who advise me on how to get things done, who are here tonight, Ms. Clarine Carter, Ms. Barbara Lacey. Casey James was very instrumental in advising me and taking me by the arm and telling me a few things. Joe Tyree, instrumental as well, Hubert Smith. I lean on these people for help and for advice. Before I take it to the public, I check with others to see how to do it and how to say it. And I thank them for helping me get to where we are. Thank you very much.
One other thing before you go. I have a test for you. No, I don't. I have something I want to hand out to you. And you got those. It's a brief synopsis of everything that I've covered here, written by some people in my unit. I guess we can pass it out the door. It'd be easier, wouldn't it? Okay. If anyone wanted to donate to this project I'm working on at West Virginia State, the bus that I'm providing to the school down there, we can do it by sending it to the Charles C. Rogers Memorial and Monument Fund at West Virginia State. If I can read the address. And it's tax deductible too, by the way. And that is 5,000 Furlong Drive, Institute, West Virginia, 25112. Again, West Virginia State University, ROTC, Charles C. Rogers Monument and Memorial Fund, 5,000 Furlong Drive, Post Office Box, Institute, West Virginia, 25112. Thank you.